Thank you for purchasing a Timber King sawmill, 1220 sawmill. We're going to show you today how to uncrate your machine, assemble it, and we're also going to assemble a transportation package with this machine. First thing we need to do when you go pick up your machine from the truck company is inspect it, walk around, and make sure everything looks good. If there's any physical signs of damage, mark your bill of lading stating that there's possible damage on the bill of lading. After you sign for it and you bring it home like we've done here, we'll go ahead and we're going to take the plywood off the machine first, and then we'll break all the parts out. We'll take the saw head off, take the frame sections off, assemble the frame sections. Tension screw and your screw dog assembly are going to be tie strapped to the top of the machine. So what we'll do now is we'll cut the tension screw off, and then we'll install that. All right, go ahead and remove the tension screw. There's a big nut on the end so everything doesn't fall off during travel. Go ahead and remove that. And then what we'll do is put it into the tension nut and just hold the cylinder with your left hand and just thread the screw on there. There's a little tension indicator. Make sure that slides in the groove on the cylinder. Then you can just get it so it's tight in there and you're good to go. So the next thing we're going to remove our dog assembly. Just cut the tie straps on there. I just have that tie strap on there so that the red part won't wiggle back and forth during transportation. Cut both of those off and then we'll get this out of the way. Then you can set that off to the side. We'll need it later. Your gearbox lift handle is installed backwards for shipping so it doesn't get knocked off, so you need to reverse that before taking the saw head out of the deal. So just remove the screws. There you go. Okay, so now we got the lift handle reversed, we're going to go ahead and lift the saw head out. So we're going to take the forklift over here, we're going to bring it out straight over the saw head, and you have lifting points right here. There's one right here on this side and one on the other side, and you want to strap those to your forks or strap those to your bucket of your truck. Okay, now our next step after we got the handle reversed, we got all the banding cut, the lag bolts taken out of the saw head, we're going to take the saw head out. So Jason's got the forklift here. These are our lifting points between the chain and the shaft here. We have our fancy brackets we use, straps. So hook those up. And if you're not using something like this, you can use a ratchet strap and take it around the frame here and around the fork about 3 or 4 times. Do the same on this side and be careful lifting the saw head out. Now, when you lift up, be careful of oh, wait a minute, Jason. Wait a minute. Come back down. There you go. can bring it over here.
Stabilize that?
Nah, it's fine. It won't go anywhere, but I can. All right, I think that's good there. Okay, so we got the saw head off the pallet. Now we're going to set the frames up for you. The frames have male and female ends. The male pins, Jason has already greased them a little bit, so if you want to, it helps in the assembly, makes it go together easier, or if you ever have to disassemble, it makes it a little easier to do. You can tell on your frames, we have our carriage drive cable for the front drive cable here, and on the bottom one, our cable attachment on the back. What we're going to do is Jason's going to grab the front end, grabbing the bolts. I'm going to grab the back end with the frames. We're going to set the top section off to the front, middle section to the middle, and the bottom section off to the back. And then we'll get the pallet out of the way and get the frame sections put together. 1, 2, 3. So now we got the frame sections laid off the pallet in their front, middle, and rear sections. Now what we're going to do is prep the bolts so we can bring the frames together. And what we need to do is take the large outer nut off. They're 1 1/8 wrenches. What you need. You may need to borrow them from somebody. I had to go buy a couple of them. So you remove the large outside nut. Take the smaller nut, take it towards the middle. And then you'll also want to loosen the middle nut here so that the bolts can flop around so they can fit in that hole easier. And go ahead and do that on all 4 sections there. So I'm going to take the frame sections close to each other here. Jason's going to grab a 2-inch ratchet strap. I take it from like right here all the way over this one here. It gives us plenty of room to use the ratchet strap. If you get too close down here, it gets hard to get leverage. I'll go all the way around the other one too, the middle one. All right, so now we have our ratchet strap on here. We got the things kind of lined up a little bit, and we'll start ratcheting together. Watch your fingers here. A lot of times when you're doing this, it'll get close, and you can kind of, hang on before you start wiggling, you can kind of, it'll pop in place. Wiggle this side over that way a little bit. There it goes. Okay. Now we need to do this here. Hang on. Yeah, that bolt. I need to wiggle a bolt. Okay, now we're good. Sorry, you all right?
Yep.
All right. Now, make sure you're good and tight on your joints there. Now take your nuts here, the center nut, and you're going to tighten it up here. And do the same on this one. Now, Jason, go ahead and take these. Tighten these two first and these two first. And those two just stabilize the frame, the bolt together. Take your center nuts over to the frame. And I like to leave them kind of tight against the frame there. Now this next step, we take our big bolt and put it on the outside. And you want to tighten this together, holding this one steady and tighten that one against there. This one, if you start tightening it this way, will take the frame and actually separate this gap you have here. We got the frame sections put together, got the first two bolts tight against here. We took this other nut, we take it over to this edge, thread this on here, use your wrench to tighten this up. I'm keeping this one steady. Now I tighten that one up. Do it on the bottom as well. Okay, now you can set a 4-foot level on here on the track, and you can use that if there's a gap here or here. You can use either the jam nut here or the jam nut here to take the frame this way or this way. Top one is going to push it down on that side. Bottom one's going to push that side up. Now when you do that, you'll have to loosen this nut off and then tighten this nut this way to push the frame either way. We got the frames put together. We got them leveled pretty good. You want to be careful when you're putting them together. Kind of watch this gap. Make sure it stays pretty parallel. That'll help you get the frames level. And also, if you're going to play with the adjustment nuts, make sure that you don't separate your seam there. Okay, what we're doing now is getting ready to level the frame up. If you purchased your mill and you're not going to install the transportation package, then the next step here is to level the frame, all 4 corners. We're going to loosen our leveling feet. They're kind of jammed in place right now, so we'll loosen those and then we'll drop the leveling feet down. We'll level the front of the mill side to side. We're going to go to the back of the mill. We're going to level it side to side using the level. Then we're going to level it front to back. Now, if you're leveling your mill on concrete like we're doing, take an impact driver or an 1/8" wrench and drive the feet down so the frames are about 1 or 2 inches off the ground. If you're going to be on a soft surface, such as dirt or gravel, use 1x6s. They're about 45 inches long. Put one underneath each section of leveling feet. Here, 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 and here. Okay, Jason. If you haven't. That makes life a lot easier. There you go. So use a 4-foot level to level it up. Okay, we'll go back and do the same thing on the rear side. Ouch. Get your frame up about 2 inches off of there. Okay, good. So we've used the 4-corner bolts to level the mill front to back and side to side, so we don't need our level anymore. So we put the level off to the side. Now we take each of our center leveling feet and crank those down till they hit the ground and give them about 1 to 2 cranks. Now, one way you can assure that the frame is level is get down on your knee and sight down the round rail, and you can see if the center ones need to be tightened a little bit more to raise it up or loosen a little bit to raise them down. Once everything's in place, go ahead and take the jam nut all the way down to the bottom and jam nut it in place. Now we're getting ready to install the saw head on top of the frame. Now before I do that, I'm going to take out these pins that hold the head in place during transport. You no longer need these for the saw head. Now what I'm going to also do is show you an easier way to set the mill onto the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the head down. We want to get the gas tank underneath the frame, get it pretty much all the way down there as far as we can get it. So we're pretty good there. Now I'm going to crank a couple turns cranking to the right, locks the head in place. I don't know if you hear that click. So right there. This is an easier way to lift it up onto the saw head. We have our 1220 lifting board, which is about 2x4, about probably 4 foot long. We'll set it on top of the forks and right in front of this sprocket here. So Jason's going to lift using the board and the frame, not the shaft here, because if you use the shaft, you can bend that and it won't raise and lower properly. Right here. So now we're going to set the mill onto the frame. You can use a tractor or the skid steer. Each wheel is rounded, so it's going to set on the track, so it's important to get that all the way up on there. Make sure you're far enough on the frame that you can set it on your wheels there. Hang on, I think we need to come up a little bit. Come up, and then we're going to shift to your right just a hair. There you go. I think you're good. Okay, go ahead and lower it down. Okay, you're good. So now our frame is on here. It's rolling back and forth good. So we're good to go. All right, so we just put that on, take that off there. We're on the rollers. We have our front and rear track wipers on there. That keeps the rail clean of dirt and debris when you're cutting. Okay, so now we got the saw head on. It's important when you put the saw head on the frame that you have these little nubs right here, the solid welded stops are on the frame, be on the same side as the operator. It can be installed backwards, which you don't want. You want it to be installed like we have here. The next step, what we're going to do is we're going to install your drive cable, which came with the machine. This is probably in the same box as your water tank, your hat, and your other stuff. And we have a couple eye bolts with some hardware, and then the clamps to hold the cable on. So we'll show you how to install the cables after and we'll attach them to the machine. And then we'll also show you about this down here, the carriage hold down bolt and the carriage hold down nut. So for assembling the carriage drive cable, there's a tie strap on there. Cut the tie strap off with a pair of dikes. And then you can kind of take your cable and just throw it out down there. I take the eye bolt, I loosen up the threads on there, push the loop up, push the cable through there, through the eye bolt, flip that back over, stick it back through there. Now on this end here, I like to put just about 1 inch or 2 on the end. That'll save us from having to cut that part off later when we get it all the way assembled. So tighten this all the way up. Good and tight. I like putting this short one up on the front end and we'll run everything back. So let me go ahead and attach this and I'll be right back. So we took the cable underneath the first pulley, around the back side of this top pulley, around the front, take it down here, underneath this pulley here. take it to the back, hook your eye bolt up back here. I'm leaving this attachment bracket loose so I can pull my excess through here. Kind of hand tighten that. Then I'm going to take this, and if you look all the way down here, I'm going to pull that as tight as I can get it. We have our crank handle in the neutral position right here. I'm going to slide it over onto its spot here, and now it doesn't crank, so I'm going to have Jason tighten the hardware on here to tighten the cable up. Go ahead and tighten that up. Nice. All right. So now our saw head's driving back and forth. And if you want to make it drive a little easier, you can tighten it more or loosen it either way. So you're good to go here. Now, when you crank through a cut and get done with a cut, and you're going to pull the handle back for the next cut, you can either crank the handle and bring it back, or what's faster is to disengage the handle, pull the head back. That keeps the handle from flipping up and hitting you in the head. Now, we got the mill assembled. If your mill's going to set for a while and you're done using it, you can lock the saw head in place if you want. That way, in case a big wind comes or something comes against it, it's not going to blow to the end and fall off. So what we have is a carriage hold-down bolt that goes through a hole here. And then we have holes in the frame. And I have my carriage hold-down nut and shaft here. And so I'll slide it through these collars. These collars use a 5/16 thread on the set screws. We're not going to need the set screws at all, so you can take them out or just loosen them. I've just loosened them. Slide that through. Take my safety pin, put that in place. I'm not very good at those. There we go. Line your hold down plate with your nut here. Take your bolt here, take it through the hole in the top, thread it through your nut. And then when it's going to sit, you can take it all the way down if you want. That keeps the saw head from going forward or backwards. Your mill's equipped with 2 places to mount log stops on each frame section. The mill comes with 3 log stops. I like mounting my first stop right here. And what you do is loosen 5/16 Allen wrenches off these collars. You'll slide the steel shaft out. You'll insert the new dog. Then tighten up the set screws. And then there's a bolt in the bottom of the dog you can use to kind of tighten it up against the frame there. There you go. And the log stop has multiple positions. It can go there, or in the hole, or all the way down out of the way. All right, now we've installed our log stops. They can be installed anywhere. This is where I like to put them because it'll support longer logs. You can take this one off and move it down here, or move them however is convenient for you. The next step we're going to do is installing the screw dog assembly. So your screw dog assembly is shipped to you like this here. And basically what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take these large nuts off here. They're reverse thread. Got lucky there. Then you take this whole assembly off of here. And then, just like when you did the carriage hold-down bolt, you gotta make sure your 5/16 set screws are way loose, or you can remove them completely. Just through there. Okay. Now, when installing this, go back and make sure that your frame's at least 4 inches off the ground. 4 inches off the ground, you'll be able to crank the handle without hitting your hand on the ground. So now we're putting the dog assembly on. Slide the shaft through there. Start hooking up your, putting your nuts on here. I put them pretty close together. I hold them with one hand. So now we got the nuts threaded on about halfway. We take our dog assembly. I'm gonna loosen this and slide this up so I got some room to work here. Tighten that back in place. Slide this over the shaft here. Push your shaft all the way through to the other side. As far as it'll go. Now continue taking these nuts all the way back to get them against this frame here. So we got the nuts threaded on. That takes forever. I know it's a pain in the rear. But tighten these up and take the first nut and take it so it's about 1/16 of an inch away from the frame here. Take your other nut. Get you a couple big wrenches and jam lock those together. Now your dog is ready to use. You can slide it back and forth. You can adjust it up and down. And there's a little nut here on the back side that when that is on the threads is how you crank it into your log to lock it in place. Right now we're done with the assembly. We got the stops on, we got the dog mounted. Your next step is put your water tank on here, put some fuel in your fuel tank, fire it up, set your tension and start cutting some lumber.